What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Talkin Football podcast. This is episode 49. Today, we're going to be going over the NFC East and my predictions for their records. I know I wasn't able to get an NFC North video out yesterday, but I was able to post on Instagram. So if you want to stay up to date with my record predictions, check my Instagram because I'm definitely going to be posting there. I'm not necessarily guaranteed to post a video here, although I'm going to try and get a video out for the rest of the divisions until next Thursday when we kick off for week 1. Let me hit the intro and let's get right into NFC East predictions. And let me just add, if you guys want to check out my record predictions, it's at Talkin Football Podcast, same handle as it is here, as it is on Instagram, for you guys to check out. Yesterday we did the NFC North on Instagram. The day before that, we posted the NFC South predictions. Today we're looking at the NFC East, and we're going to be running it back with the man who we did it with last year. He was also part of the Super Bowl show when he correctly predicted Cooper DeJean's masterclass. Welcome back to the TFP. Danny, welcome back, buddy.
What's up, Kyle? First of all, thank you for having me back. I've heard that, Logan's last video, the views were all right, but the GOAT's back, and rightfully so. And I think it's a much-needed reunion. I'm very excited to go over the NFC East today. It's always, the ever-changing division of football, and I'm glad to be back.
All right, let's get right into it. I'm going to start with our favorite team, the New York Giants, who I have ending last in this division. I have them going 5-12. And look, 5-12 is an ugly record, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're like New Orleans Saints bad. I think the Saints are like a really bad team because they are a really bad team for what it's worth. I don't think that way about the Giants. And maybe that's a little bit of my bias coming in, but I think when you look at it, just at face value, they have the hardest schedule in football. They have a .580 record, or overall winning percentage, I guess is what it is. That's what their opponents have combined. The next closest is like 560, I want to say. So it's a pretty significant jump there in terms of having the hardest schedule. They come out of the gate with 4 very tough games. 2 road games. You have the Washington, you have the Commanders, then you have the Cowboys on the road. Then you come back for the Chiefs at home, and then the Chargers at home. That's really not fun. Then you have the Saints on the road, and then you have the Eagles again at home, right? Yeah, so then that's not an easy schedule. I mean, that's maybe 1-5 ideally. And that's kind of crazy saying that 1-5 is ideal, but that's what they're kind of setting themselves up for. And they don't have a bad roster. I think Russ is still a good quarterback. I think their offensive line is better than it has been. I think their skill positions are solid. Defensively, they're not bad. I think that defensive line's ferocious. They're not going to be able to contain all of them. Having Carter, Dexy, Thibodeau, Burns, whoever that second defensive tackle they decide to rotate in and out is, they can easily send 5 in every play and get home, but I don't know if that's something that's going to necessarily happen because of how conservative Shane Bowen is. That point aside, I like their linebackers too. I really like McFadden. I love McFadden, actually. I know you do too. Danny Okereke is great as well. In the secondary, looks better. Adebo, adding him makes this roster a little bit better. But and I'm going over this roster and I'm like, okay, maybe a 7-8 win team, but given how hard the schedule is, I only see them winning maybe 5 games out of that. And definitely probably beating the Saints, maybe the Raiders. I have them going 2-4 in the division, splitting with Washington and with Dallas. That's 4 wins there. Whoever that last one comes from, I'm not totally sure, but I do think that this team is probably going to win about 5 games this year. I don't see a world where they win more than that.
I like your approach here, but I'm gonna have them at a little bit different. I'm gonna have a reach here. Now, it's a podcast. We all, love the hot takes. We all love the conservative takes. But I'm gonna go 9-8 here. Now, I'm not disagreeing with Kyle. Kyle is an expert of this. No one better than him. No one better than Talking Football. Nobody better. That's right. 5-12.
Picture.
Amazing. It's a good take. Great take because. Honestly, splitting with Dallas and Washington is not a bad take at all. I think the Giants, with this mentality, I think they could sweep Dallas this year. I really think that's a goal. I think splitting with Washington is still realistic, but I think we could get 3 wins out of those 2 teams. I am 100% certain on that. So then we also have the Saints, the Raiders that can be very easy wins. Not saying anyone's an easy win, but we could beat those teams no problem with our defense. And to be honest with you, I just think that with Kafka mixing in the offense a little bit with Dayball, maybe giving his insight and touching things up, I have no problem if this team's a wild card team because honestly, we have a future quarterback. Dart has looked excellent in preseason. Couldn't say anything better or worse. And honestly, where this offensive line goes is how far this team's going to go. If Wilson has time in the pocket, he's an aging quarterback. He's not prime Russell Wilson winning Super Bowls in Seattle Wilson, but he's still Russell Wilson. And I honestly think that we haven't seen a quarterback throw this deep since Eli. And honestly, that moon ball to Bo Collins in the preseason, all Giants fans probably expected it to drop 20 yards short, but it was right on time, and it was a great pass. And me just thinking about Malik Neighbors is the best receiver Wilson has played in his entire veteran career is just crazy to me. It's a crazy thought. Malik has the talent to go for 2,000 yards, in my opinion, easily. I think he could easily do it. But, he's a diva. All LSU receivers are divas. They want that ball. They want the rock. Dog mentality. It's just the offense needs to click, and I wouldn't be mad if they went 5-12. It's a .580 winning percentage for the Giants. It's like a 20 to 25 point stretch within their team. And I honestly think that they could swing the rock either way this year. I really think that this team on paper is better than the 2022 team that went to the wild card. Mind you, they had a very easy schedule, very light. But I think, added Javon Holland in the offseason, added some offensive line depth, added Wilson, added all these guys. Abdul Carter, my man, going to be a beast this season. I don't know how you cover. This is a Skull Vikings quote. I don't know how you cover those guys because you don't. Abdul Carter is the fastest and the best edge out of the draft this offseason. Dexter Lawrence, you can't cover him. You need 4 guys on him to even try to slow him down. And you have Brian Burns, who's one of the fastest edges in the league. And you still have Thibodeau, who can still get you 14.5 sacks. It's going to be a simple defense and a simple concept. And if it's put together and meshed well, I really think that the Giants can go really good this year. I really hope Dayball finds success because he's a great coach, and I would love to see him dancing in the locker room week 1 after a Commander's upset. That's all I have to put on it.
I respect you for giving the Giants that high. I don't see a world where they can maybe pull out 9 wins. They need some 2022 magic for that to happen, and I just don't see a world where that's the case. I will say, though, if the Giants go less than 7 wins and Daboll and Shane get fired, we might have the stupidest owners in all of football. And that says a lot considering that Woody Johnson still owns a team. Let's move on to a team. Actually, you know what? A team that actually might have a dumber owner. Let's talk about Dallas, who is coming off a very boring offseason in terms of actually signing players, but a very dramatic offseason in terms of not extending their players. They have yet to extend Micah Parsons and Deron Bland. Now, based on reports, we don't think Deron Bland is going to be holding out, but we do think that Micah Parsons, that's a situation that is for a conversation for another day. I do believe that Parsons is likely to play, but in the case he doesn't, this record goes way down, because without him, they don't really have a lot on their front 7. I actually hate their front 7. I looked at their depth chart earlier this morning just to kind of get a feel for it. The front 7 stinks. Other than Odigizua, who I think is a really solid defensive tackle, he can't do it all on his own. They don't really have anyone else other than that. Mazzie Smith stinks, and their linebackers stink. Look, I like Kenneth Murray. I think he's a solid linebacker, but we're not playing Madden, okay? So it doesn't matter how fast you are. If you're not a great tackler, which he statistically has not been, you're not set up for success, especially in division with Saquon, with Eckler, with Bill, and with Tracy, Scatabo, whoever. You're not set up for that, and I think that's a big issue that they don't have, and they do have that they're not able to address. Overshown is hurt almost every year, which stinks because he's such a good linebacker, but he doesn't stink for us, but he is such a good linebacker, and he's not able to play as much as we'd like to see him because he's so explosive. In the back end, I don't have any concerns there. Bland is great. Diggs is solid. Hooker and I'm blanking on who their other safety is. They have a really good duo there. So their secondary is fine, but their front seven is dreadful. It is so bad, so bad, and they don't really have a way to address it because the available free agents aren't as good to get there. So I think this is a 6-win team, even with Dak coming back from injury, even with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens now, that new duo, and Jake Ferguson. I love Jake Ferg. I think he's such a good tight end, but at the end of the day, even despite your offensive line, I don't like the head coaching hire. I think that was a stupid move. There's so many other fish in the sea to go after than just going in-house. Then again, it's Jerry Jones, and we know how he is. I have him going 6-11 this year, no better than that, and maybe we might have to see some serious culture changes in Jerry world.
Okay, love the prediction there. My prediction, I have them going 8-9, but here's the thing. This is with Parsons. Without Parsons, way down. Just way down. Just 5 wins. I'm putting it out there. 5 wins if he holds out. Easily 5 wins. Because I feel like Dak's not who he used to be. Post-payment, Dak has not been a good investment for the Cowboys. The chokers of the NFL, of all chokers. And I honestly just feel that their defense is not built for the playoffs. It never has been. Micah Parsons has really been their only big-time performer. And Diggs and Bland, solid guys, but just not able to have that mentality to rise up in these big win situations. That's what happened when they lost to Green Bay a few years ago, and I feel like they haven't recovered since. Cowboys Nation, this is our year. This is our year. It's never their year. It will never be their year. And I only have them at 8-9 because the scheduling is it's all right, middle of the pack, sure, but without your all pro defensive end, I mean, you're not winning games. You really aren't. When CeeDee Lamb's double covered, who are you throwing the ball to? Who's your running back? Javonte Williams? Like, come on, man. Like, it's just like, they got the offensive lineman out of Bama this year. And, not the flashy pick, the right pick, sure. But Jerry Jones of all owners is literally just a Pittsburgh Pirates owner just with money. That's how I put it. That's what he is. Because he is just so incredibly bad that, like, he just needs to retire. And the Cowboys are just a team I see every single year. High expectations, little to no talent, except for a few. And there's situations surrounding the Cowboys media where I just see them going a dark age, just like it's how it's been for the Giants for the past few years. A dark age of Dallas Cowboys football. That's how I see it. I have them at 8-9, like I said before, for the scheduling, but without Parsons, if that goes down or Lamb goes down, say goodbye.
And another thing is, because we both have them around the middle of the pack, they are in no man's land right now. They're not bad enough to get a top pick, like maybe go with Arch Manning, because I know Jerry Jones wouldn't mind having a Manning, but they're not good enough to make the playoffs. They're kind of stuck, and there's not really anywhere for them to go, because either you're going to pay Micah Parsons and continue to try and contend, which is kind of hard to do considering how poor the culture is there, or you're going to trade Micah Parsons, which means you have to tear everything down, and Jerry Jones, considering how old he is, will never do that. They're really stuck right now. They don't have a great place to go. If you want to talk about a team who does have a place to go, let's talk about Washington. Now, look, if you guys watched the NFC East free agency preview, which is the only division I did, but I will say I'm holding my ground here. Washington is still in the identity phase. If you guys don't know what that means, there's 4 phases of being in the offseason according to the Talkin Football podcast. Phase 2 is the identity phase. Or there's 4 stages really, but you can't be in more than one at once. Washington's an identity phase. They are not ready to contend. They're not a Super Bowl contender, but they're not bad enough to be rebuilding. They need to figure out what their identity is. They don't have one. Being just a good team does not give you an identity. You want to know what Philly's good at? They're good at winning the trenches. That's what their identity is. They know that. That's why they won the Super Bowl this past year. Washington, they have 0 identity. Granted, they have a really solid team. Jaden Daniels, I think he's going to have a step back this year, And because everyone's putting all of their chips into this team, you're going to be disappointed. They're not more than 10 wins, in my opinion. I think they're going to go 3-3 in the division. They're going to split with everyone, in my opinion. I just don't see a world where this team has more than 10 wins. And I don't see a world where they go farther in the divisional round. And yes, I think Terry is a great receiver. And Debo is a good addition given how this offense kind of operates. And yes, Bill looks like to be a great running back for them, 100%. But let's just take a step back here. Other than that, what do they really have? They have a decent defense. They have a pretty good offensive line, which actually I'll give them credit. They built a very good offensive line. Their defense is solid. Nothing's going to blow you away. It's kind of an unction there. They have Von Miller, who they just signed in the offseason. So they're still missing a couple pieces. I think they need a superstar edge rusher, like a really, really good one, and that's going to move them up to being a potential Super Bowl contender. But they don't really have an identity right now, and I think that's what's holding them back from being better, not even in the division, but also in the NFL. I will say the roster is still really good. Their schedule is easy enough for them to get to double-digit wins, if not more. There were some toss-ups in there. Minnesota, LA, like the Chargers. Those are games that they could also lose. They could also win. I think I gave them wins in those games, which puts them at double digits. So I have them going 10-7. And Danny, I know you have a very similar record prediction with them going 11-6.
Yes, I agree with everything you just said. I love the way I said this prior when they lost deep into the playoffs versus Philly. I said that the Commanders right pick with Jane Daniels all the way. I wanted Daniels. Tommy, you just gave us no hope to give us Daniels with those wins. But neighbors love neighbors too. But going on Washington's end, they built this perfectly. Stage 2 identity phase couldn't be better said. Dan Quinn is the definition of identity. This man is a winner. He's a hashtag baller. And I'm going to tell you right now, he will win this team a championship one day. It will happen. It's like they're there, but they're not there. They're on the edge. They're on the edge, but they get a few more steps. They're there, but they just don't have those pieces yet. I agree with you how they built the offensive line. I said it before. I said the Commanders have so much cap space. Win the trenches. If you want to beat Philly, win the trenches. That's what you have to do. Tunsil was great. I think they're going to be without Sam Cosey, their right guard for week 1, with Dexter Lawrence. God. Backup right guard. Easy feast. 5+ sacks. But their offensive depth is great. Re-signing Terry, good, even though it took longer than expected. Good Debo, good weapon. It's all about weapons for Daniels. He's such an explosive quarterback. He's so smart. And he knows where to find the correct throws. He could drop down for he could drop down for a sidearm. He can run. Oh, can he run? And he has a great deep ball, as we've seen. Their defense, on the other hand, the corners, Marshall Lattimore gets beat in man-to-man. He's still a solid corner, good pickup, but he could be better. Von Miller, okay, but could still be useful. And I really think, this team can use like a Gregory Rousseau or some
100%. I love Greg Rousseau. He's so good.
Some type of edge to just put him over the hill. They need that guy to get them to 12-13 wins. I see 11-6 because their record, again, a middle of the pack team, tough teams, bad teams, mid teams looking for a wild card hunt. But, I just see this team as you have your franchise QB, you have a great offensive line. There still can be improvement in upcoming drafts and free agency classes. And it's all about saving cap space. You can't blow the bank on one player. You need to save your draft chips. Or it's going all in. It's saving the franchise. And from once was just a dark period of time where they couldn't win to now they look like a contender. There's just a few more chips that they need to invest in. It's either finding a diamond in the rough at corner, or you're going all in on an edge, next free agency or at the trade deadline this year. I'm telling you, I think Gregory Rousseau could propel this team to many wins in the future, and honestly, I think if you're the Commanders GM, if opportunities presented yourself, scary money, big money, you got to go after a top edge on the market available.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there. They're pretty much one big edge rusher away, and I don't mean like a Aaron Donald kind of player. I mean like they're like a George Karlaftis or a Greg Rousseau player. Like that's what they're at. They're not like a big time addition away. I think that's who they're kind of looking at. And it's funny enough that you mentioned the secondary. I think this team is expecting a big time breakout from Mike Sanders still. And last year, I thought that he was the most overrated defensive back in the entire game. I hated him so much because I thought he got away with a lot of penalties. But I mean, down the line, he played pretty well, And look, is he grabby? Yes, but so many good corners are in this game. Sauce Gardner's one of them. I think that they're really expecting a big time Sanders still breakout for them to kind of get to the next level. And also, and I'll post this on my Instagram, the MVP of this team, and I have this in my predictions. I have Laramie Tunsil being the MVP of this team, not Terry, not Jaden Daniels, not anyone else in the defense. I think Laramie Tunsil is going to be the MVP. Protecting Daniels' blind side is going to give him way more time, and considering how mature he is as a quarterback, he's only going to be able to pick every defense pretty much apart. Let's move on now to the top team in this division. Let's go on to the reigning, defending, undisputed World Super Bowl champs. We have the Philadelphia Eagles here, 14-3. I have them going. There's really not many games I see them losing. I see them losing one game to Washington, maybe one game to the Lions, I believe they play. And then there's another team I just kind of remember off the top of my head when I was going through the schedule. I just don't see a world really lose more than 3 games this year, maybe 4. They're just so good. And my only concern with them, there's only one, is that they didn't really add anyone this offseason. They didn't add anyone. In fact, they actually lost some. I believe their only major move was re-signing Zach Bond. They let Darius Slay go, which I think might affect them because now Adoree Jackson is scheduled to start, which I don't get. There's got to be someone else better on the market than him. I agree. I'm shivering my timbers right now. But look, you face the facts. This is the best team in football right now. No one's even close to them. And this, the Eagles. This is the next best team. Maybe Buffalo. Maybe the Ravens. Maybe Kansas City. I don't think they're that good, but maybe. The offensive line's phenomenal. With or without Landon Dickerson, they're great. Saquon's phenomenal. AJ, Devonta Smith, they're great. Doesn't matter who the wideout 3 is. They're going to work with them. Dallas Goedert, great. Jalen Hurts, tush push master. They're just so good at what they do. And it's annoying because we're watching this and we're like, why can't our teams operate like that? And it's like, okay, well, look, as much as we hate on Sirianni, he operates a tight ship, and as much as we hate, they have the camera on him and he's going, yeah, look at me, haha, be on the Colts. Yeah, I 100% agree. But it's annoying that he does that and he acts like a child sometimes on the sideline. But you have to be honest, he drives a very tight ship. He runs a very tight ship. Defensively, ballers everywhere, dogs everywhere. Coop, I think he's going to have a really good year this year. I'm expecting a big-time breakout from him, whether it's at safety, whether it's at corner. I think he's going to take another step. Quinion Mitchell, roads are closed. Wherever you're throwing to him, don't be. I don't know why you're throwing to him. Whoever you're throwing to is not open. Their defensive line is great. They just built a really, really good team. Good special teams. They're just sound all the way around. There's no way, in my opinion, they lose less than 4 games, or they lose less than I can't even speak. They lose more than 4 games this year, but I have them going 14-3. And you have a similar prediction, a little bit less. I was surprised that you had them going 12-5. But break down, Danny, why you have the Philly Eagles going 12-5.
Yeah, 12-5 was just the standard for me. I feel like, the schedule, you look at them, they're not losing many games. But, anywhere from 12 to 14 wins is where I see fit. But, there might be some upsets, some losses, someone may go down. You just never know. So 12 to 14, 12 is more of like, oh, someone went down, they're riding ship without them. Maybe it's, Jordan Mailata, maybe it's Devontae Smith, whoever the case. 12 is just like the bare minimum in that thing. But if they're fully healthy, they're full on, firing on all cylinders, Super Bowl champion Eagles coming right out of the gate. I see 14-3, no problem. But, they're just they're a gritty team. They do not care whose feelings they hurt or who's in the way. They're just going to move them right through. No one gets past that Philly offensive line. And we said it as Giants fans for years. If Saquon had a Philly offensive line, man, would he be he'd be the best running back in the league. And look what happened. I mean, just unbelievable what he did last year. And man, if he could repeat that or do anything better, wow. Just like he is an unbelievable player. Unbelievable player is all I have to say for Saquon, because that the mentality in Philly is we're running right through you and we don't care. And we don't care. That's just the message that they send. And honestly, I don't know if anyone's beating them out of the NFC this year. I'll tell you right now, no one's fundamentally built from the ground up. I see no fit. And honestly, Philly showed that fundamentals in football and depth works in the Super Bowl. Kansas City, no answer, no mentality, all built on devil magic. I mean, it's just the way football is, and it's just like, man, like Philly is just the top dog, and who will stop them? I don't know. That's all I have to say. And there is no weakness. I mean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, they have guys rushing the quarterback. Both not better than Dexter Lawrence, by the way. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. They have great linebackers. Have you seen their linebackers? I mean, man,
Yeah, really good core.
They know how to win games, and they know, like, even Reed Blankenship had a good year. Like, man, they are crazy talented. They are hard workers beyond belief, and they just know how to win, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter how you win; it matters if you win. That's it. You can win 2-0. Who cares? You won. That's all I have to say about Philly. If it doesn't matter if you have more talent, it doesn't matter if you're stronger, it doesn't matter if you're a better football IQ. They're gonna run you over. It doesn't matter if they're pounding the rock to Saquon for 30 touches, or if AJ Brown and Devontae Smith go for 200 yards. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You always see them in the win column every week.
You do. And I will say, you cannot forget, if you're talking about dogs on this team, you cannot forget about Talkin Football favorite, Grant Calcaterra, who I spent about like 5 minutes ranting on in the Super Bowl live stream. And then he ended up, I think he either caught a game-winning it wasn't game-winning touchdown. I don't know if he had a touchdown late in the game or if recovered the onside kick, but I felt like such an idiot after that. But look, be honest, this is such a good team. I will say if there's one team that maybe could beat them, I think either the Rams or the Bucks. One of those two teams, maybe the Lions. I'm not sure how it's going to work yet with the new coordinators, but if there's a team that's going to beat them, I would say probably one of those two, maybe three if you want to include Detroit there. This is how we're going to end the episode. Thank you all for watching. Danny, thank you for coming back to the TFP for the NFC East predictions. Be on the lookout on Instagram if you guys want a further breakdown. If you're like, hey, what did TFP say about my team? Look at my Instagram at Talkin Football Pod. I'll be posting the NFC East records basically the same time this video goes up. Make sure you check that out. This is Talkin Football, and that's what I'm going to say about that.